ധമ്മാചാരി വിവേകരത്ന മഹാരാഷ്ട്രയിൽ നാഗ്പൂർ സ്വദേശിയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹം BSNL എഞ്ചിനീയർ ആയിരുന്നു. 1980 കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ അദ്ദേഹം ത്രിരത്ന ബൗദ്ധ മഹാസംഘത്തിന്റെ സമ്പർക്കത്തിൽ വരികയും 1987 നാഗ്പൂരിൽ നിന്നുള്ള ആദ്യ ധമ്മാചാരിയാവുകയും ചെയ്തു. ശേഷം അദ്ദേഹം നാഗ്പൂരിൽ വിവിധ ഭാഗങ്ങളിൽ ധമ്മ ക്ലാസുകൾ ആരംഭിച്ചു. ബാബാ സാഹിബിന്റെ ആശയങ്ങൾ പ്രചരിപ്പിക്കുകയുണ്ടായി. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്റെ ഭഗവാൻ ബുദ്ധന്റെയും ബാബാ സാഹേബ് അംബേദ്കറുടെയും ആശയങ്ങൾ ഇന്ത്യ മുഴുവൻ പ്രചരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനായി നാഗലോകം സ്ഥാപിക്കുന്നതിൽ മുഖ്യ പങ്ക് വഹിക്കുകയുണ്ടായി. കൂടാതെ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ വിവിധ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് വരുന്ന കുട്ടികളെ ധമ്മം പഠിപ്പിച്ചിരുന്ന നാഗാർജുന ട്രെയിനിംഗ് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ടിന്റെ ഡയറക്ടറായിരുന്നു ദീർഘകാലം. ധമ്മം വളരെ ആഴത്തിൽ മനസ്സിലാക്കിയ അദ്ദേഹം ഇന്നും വിവിധ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിൽ ധമ്മ പ്രവർത്തനം നടത്തിവരുന്നു. കേരളത്തിൽ ധമ്മ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾക്ക് തുടക്കം കുറിച്ചത് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ നേതൃത്വത്തിലായിരുന്നു. ഇന്ന് കേരളത്തിലെ ധമ്മ പ്രവർത്തനം ഇദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ നേതൃത്വത്തിലാണ് നടക്കുന്നത്. കഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു വർഷത്തിനിടെ 3ഓളം ശിബിരങ്ങൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ നേതൃത്വത്തിൽ നടത്തുകയുണ്ടായി. കേരളത്തിലെ ധമ്മ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ നടത്തുന്ന കേരള ഘടകത്തിന്റെ ഉപദേശകനാണ് അദ്ദേഹം. 77 വയസ്സ് പൂർത്തിയാക്കിയ അദ്ദേഹം സംഘത്തിന്റെ നിരവധി ഉത്തരവാദിത്വങ്ങൾ കൈകാര്യം ചെയ്യുന്നതിനോടൊപ്പം വിവിധ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിൽ ധമ്മപ്രവർത്തനം നടത്തിവരുന്നു. ഏഷ്യയുടെ മാത്രമല്ല ലോകത്തിന്റെ തന്നെ വെളിച്ചമാണ് ശ്രീ ബുദ്ധ ഭഗവാൻ. ബുദ്ധധമ്മ പ്രചാരണത്തിനും പരിശീലനത്തിനും വേണ്ടി പ്രവർത്തിക്കുന്ന ത്രിരത്ന ബൗദ്ധ മഹാസംഘത്തിന്റെ ആചാര്യനായ ധമ്മാചാരി DH വിവേകരത്നയുമായുള്ള മാതൃദേശം നടത്തിയ അഭിമുഖം സംഭാഷണത്തിൽ നിന്ന്.
In the present situation, Buddhism is very much necessary for the Indian people. First and foremost thing, that the Constitution of India, based on the liberty, equality and fraternity, these are the values and these are the human values. Yeah. So, these three human values are only embedded in the Buddhism. And Baba Saheb Ambedkar very clearly mentioned in his lecture to the All India Radio that I have not taken these three values from the French Revolution, but I have borrowed it from my teacher, Lord Buddha. So, Buddhism has these three human values and no other religion has all three values, either one or two. But if I want to live according to the Indian situation, Indian Constitution, then you may follow in your four walls of your home, whatever the religion. But when you come into the public contact, when you come into the contact with other people, you must regard the liberty, his liberty. You must relate with him with equality and you behave with a fraternity. So these three values are very important as a human development and as a society flourishing. So in Indian situation, in contemporary India, without these values, India will not survive. And therefore, Buddhism is very necessary in the present situation, whether you follow the Buddhism or whether you don't follow the Buddhism. But these values are within the Buddhism only. You may say you are a Buddhist, you may not say you are a Buddhist, doesn't matter. But you must go according to these values. And if you follow these values, then you're supposed to be a follower of the Buddha, nothing else. So, role of Baba B.R. Ambedkar.
For the expansion and development of Buddhism in India.
Yes. After many centuries, in India, Buddhism come into the surface, I can say like that. But it was buried for many centuries under the ground. But first things, Anagarik Dharmapa, who was a Sri Lankan person, but following the Buddhism, he came in India and he revived all Buddhist, not all, but 4 Buddhist sites, that is Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, Kushinara and Lumbini. These were the 4 sites important in the as a Buddhist person. So these 4 sites are revived by Anagarik Dharmapala, and he not only revived but he started to spread the Buddhism within India, outside India. And he was a very pivotal person in bringing the Buddhism in modern India. And he established the Mahabodhi Society, and he tried his whole level best, all his efforts to spread the Buddhism in India. But Baba Saheb did a miraculous work, bringing Buddhism particularly to the specific scheduled caste people with whom he worked very hard. They were the wholehearted believer of Dr. Ambedkar, and they embraced the Buddhism, and that Buddhism is become such a solid foundation in India. Now they cannot go back at any cost with their old religion. So they will strive to spread the Buddhism, to live the Buddhism, and to bring the Buddhism in India in this new era. So for the revival of Buddhism in this modern age, Baba Saheb Ambedkar has took this great effort, and he, with his own understanding, he bring the Buddhism to the new era. Yeah. So that's my answer to you. First thing one should understand that the Baba Saheb definitely wanted the materialistic life, but materialistic life itself is not the end of a human being. Human being must live happily, must live in accordance with the society, he must live as a dignified life. And to be a dignified life, Buddhism is necessary. So Baba Saheb gave this. He very emphatically says, my struggle is not for power and wealth. My struggle is to reclamation of the human dignity. And to reclamation as a human dignity, he gave the Buddhism. And that Buddhism is very, very important to a human life. But though he made such a very strong emphasis on practicing the Buddhism in his own lecture of 15th October 1956 after the conversion, but his thoughts and his ideas about the Buddhism has not been further taken further by his own lieutenants. Immediately they fall back to the politics, they fall back to the power, they fall back to different their own ideas. So though Baba Saheb established the Buddhist Society of India and wanted to spread the Buddhism under that banner, but it didn't also did any effective. Buddhist Society of India and Republican Party of India became mingled with each other, and one cannot differentiate which is the Buddhist Society of India people and which are the Republican Party of India people. And as a result, it mixed up with the politics and it slowed down the process. So that was the reason for not taking very great leap or very great momentum for spreading the Buddhism. So that was the main reason, because Baba Saheb's strong lieutenant forget about the Buddhism and they plunge into the power. We want the power and power will solve the difficulty, which is not the case. Power has limitations. Material life has limitations, and that limitations will not give the dignity. You may get the power, you may get the materialistic life, but that cannot be a dignified life as a human being. So, to be a human being as a dignified life, you must have a self-respect, you must have the morality, you must have a high morals within the practice, high ethics within the practice of your own life, and that has been forgotten. That was the reason why the Baba Saheb's Dhamma revolution could not take further. Another reason, there were no what can I say, the trained bhikkhus or trained upasakas or trained Dhamma sevakas who can teach the Dhamma, who can practice the Dhamma very effectively and who can teach the Dhamma from their own experience. That was the lacuna, great lacuna, and because of that great lacuna, there were no example before the in general people what is Buddhism, how to practice it. Just chanting Trisharan Panchashil is not a Buddhism. We have to live the Buddhism, and to live the Buddhism we need some sort of example. Baba Sahib very categorically mentioned this in his article in the Mahabodhi Society, mentioning that the spread of the Buddhism is to serve the mankind, and for this reason he needs a new trained Dhamma Sevakas. They may be married, they may not be married, but they must train in practice of the Buddhism, they must know the principles of the Buddhism, they must very well trained, and then they can propagate the Buddhism. And that didn't happen after the Baba Sahib. And this lacuna has been filled up by our teacher Urgen Sangharakshita, who has created this wonderful Triratna Bauddha Mahasangha, to whom we are the members of that. We practice, we learn, we meditate, we dedicate our life for the practice of Buddhism, and from our experience we try to tell others if they see our life and they also wanted to become ours, like us. So that's the Buddhism. That's the Buddhist telling to the people.
Sir, if you don't mind, I want a little more explanation regarding the difference between Neo-Buddhism and the traditional Buddhism.
I don't think that there is a very great difference between any sort of Buddhism, whether it is a Mahayana or Hinayana or Vajrayana or Nivayana or Dhisayana. In different area, you can give the different names. But the basic Buddhism, which Baba Sahib gives to us, and he mentioned in his 22 vows, it's very clear. He mentioned 5 precepts as a vows. He mentioned eightfold path as a practicing to practice as a vow. He mentioned 10 paramitas to practice as a vow. So these are the very basic elements of the Buddhism. Whether any yana, this is the basic which Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar gave to us.
Then the last and final question, sir. What would be the future of Indian Buddhism?
To my mind, future of Indian Buddhism is very great. People will learn slowly. It will take time. It is not a miracle. Just within a day, it will flourish and this. Because practice of Buddhism is a very difficult. It's not simple, just like other religion. Huh? In other religion, it's very simple things. But in Buddhism, to practice Buddhism is not just to say Trisharan Panchashil. It's not just to say or just to meditate. It's just you have to put your whole heart in practicing the precepts. Unless you practice the precepts, unless you show you are friendly to others, unless you practice the friendliness, there is no Buddhism. And that needs great effort. And as a result, what I will say that if you want the Buddhism to flourish, so people should understand why Dr. Ambedkar given this Buddhism, and I must put all effort to practice the Buddhism. So that is not happening, and therefore the process is very slow. Just like in India, this Triratna Bauddha Mahasangha, we are trying our level best. We are giving the training to the young people, just like you have seen that girl, small. She became trained in Nagloka, just like here Ravindra Prasad, who organized this retreat. So there are few people who are running this training in Nagloka, 8 months training, residential training. We are giving full basic knowledge of Buddhism. We are telling them the approach of Baba Saheb's towards Buddhism, towards religion, and why Buddhism is very important in our life. So that sort of training we are giving to the people. We have trained up till now most about 2000 people, but hardly out of that, maybe 100 or 150 our alumni are here and there are trying to practice the Buddhism. Not everyone, because environment is not conducive to them. When they go to their home, their father and mother are different religious peoples. If they come from Kerala, they are from Christian background. If they come from something, they are from the communist background. If they come from, they are Hindu background, and they say, oh, Buddhism is useless. Practice this. Eat mutton. Eat this. Do this. That do. Go to worship to the God. So all family members are forcing them, and they find themselves helpless to convince them. So this is a very typical situation. Though people follow, oh, Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim, Baba Sahab ki Jai, Baba Sahab ki Jai, but they are very far away from the Baba Sahab's thinking about the Buddhism. They just want reservation, jobs, material life, nothing else. They don't want Buddhism. They want Hinduism, and they want the material life. They want to remain in Hindu. Sometimes they feel, oh, they don't want to be a Hindu. But they say themselves very proudly they are the Buddhists, and that is a great thing, saying themselves as a Buddhist. But it is not just enough. They have to practice the Buddhism. Then it will attract other people. If you say Buddhist and if you behave with your old attitude and old customs and old things, nobody will accept you. They will say, oh, you are just like me. So as a Buddhist, you must look different, you must behave different, your attitude must be different, and it must be just a human being. Just a human being. How best you can be a best human being. So that's the thing, and that is the reason why Buddhism is not flourishing as we expect it.
What are the crises do you expect the ensuing years?
It's very difficult to say. Crisis means I don't think anything is the crisis. If I am convinced to practice the Buddhism, I can follow the Buddhism. So what crisis come to me? Buddhism is not a social religion in that sense. Buddhism is a personal religion. I must commit to Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, three jewel, and I must start practicing. I cannot wait for my father and mother and sister and daughter and this and that. They will follow, then I will follow. This is not the Buddhism. This is not at all Buddhism. Buddhism is yours own. And you must start practicing the Buddhism. And to practice the Buddhism, go for refuse to the three jewel and practice the precepts and develop yourself as a best kind of human being by practicing meditation, anapanasati, making yourself more aware about the situation, aware about your own personality, and practicing the loving kindness. We call this as a Maitri Bhavana. These are the two meditations, two types of meditation makes a man on a different level, and he becomes a real personality. So that's my idea. Yeah. So I don't see any crisis in the present.
Sir, thank you very much for having spent.
Yes, sir. Especially in current India, Sangha Parivar India, any crisis for Buddhism?
I don't see any crisis. They cannot stop us being practicing as a Buddhist. I don't see any. Nobody can stop anyone to practice it unless he said, oh, you should not say, you should not keep the Buddhist image in your house. You cannot see keep the Dr. Ambedkar's photo in our house. If you see, we will kill you. Unless that situation comes in India, it is very difficult to stop the Buddhism. So, if that situation comes, then that may be the different thing. Even that situation, just like me, or what I will do, I will say, okay, I will not keep the photo, but I will still hold my hand, bring my mind to the Buddha image, and I will say, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. That will be my attitude. So, nobody can stop me by practicing the Buddhism. So, that's my. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir,
Thank you.
for having spent some time for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Good.